So we'll get to all that with Dan Dakich, who joins us now on 107.7 The Franchise on the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline. Coach, God bless you. Where are you? You're in the NIT somewhere, right?
Actually, I just got done last night in Pittsburgh. Now I'm hustling from Hartford to Bristol to do my radio show and then get do a little half times or whatever the heck I'm doing tonight. Yeah, how you doing, Big Easy?
It's good. Good. It's good to see you, or good to hear from you.
I guess he knows the rules, not to call you by your real name.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. My producer gives me a really, really, really hard time about the nickname, which I didn't even come up with. So I mean, I don't know what to do there.
You do what you want to do.
That's right.
I do what I want to do. Damn it.
That's right. Eat it, Todd. Coach, when it comes to coaches, I asked Travis Ford this yesterday, and he's a guy who's kind of limping into the tournament and hasn't had a whole lot of tournament success. Neither has Lon Kruger around here. So when it comes to coaches' legacies, program legacies, how much overimportance, if at all, do fans and media put on NCAA tournament success?
Well, I think they put the majority of it on. I mean,
is it too much? No, it's not enough emphasis being put on the regular season.
One of the things I really like about the Big Ten is that winning a regular season or a tournament title is really important. Like I had people say, well, it was an exhibition game between Michigan State and Wisconsin for the Big Ten title because Michigan State was in where they were in as a 7 apparently, and Wisconsin was a 1. Well, maybe, except if you look at the reaction of the players when they won the tournament. I mean, so I think that there is way too much emphasis put on the tournament. And as I say that, I'm saying to myself, man, you're an idiot for saying that because I probably believe, like most fans, that, okay, this is where you make your bones. Certainly for coaches, I'll give you an example again. I live in the Big Ten. I live in Indiana. Tom Crean's under a lot of heat, and the dude just won the Big Ten title 2 years ago at a school that hadn't won a Big Ten title outright since 1993. But 2 years later, here we are because of a variety of reasons, all of which are surrounding the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, man, it's like when people talk about Lon Kruger, they don't talk about anything he's won. They say, he went back and went to the Final Four in whatever year it was. So, there's no doubt that NCAA tournament success is definitely important and probably overstated.
Dan Dakich with us on 107.7 The Franchise. How much, if at all, did the mid-majors get screwed out of this deal this year?
Well, based on the formula, probably not a whole lot. Based on what happens with Murray State and who they played and all that stuff, probably not a lot, unfortunately, although I'll tell you this, man. I don't care what league you're in. Anybody that's ever coached Division I basketball understands. You go on the road, you win 25 games. That's a hell of a team. I mean, particularly as you've won like 5 in a row, now 10 in a row. Now, man, every game's a T-shirt game. Every game's a white out, black out, green out, whatever the school colors are out. So probably they're the only one that really had a legitimate gripe. But again, they get screwed before the season starts because there are not a lot of teams that are going to play people at all. I mean, they're just not. They're not going to play Murray State. You have any kind of success at all, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a game with anybody, whether it's home or on the road, because, the Oklahomas, the Indianas, the North Carolina, they don't want to lose their team. If they're going to play a game against a mid-major, it's going to be a lousy mid-major where they don't have to sweat it. I don't blame them to a certain degree, but it doesn't help mid-major basketball.
Yeah, and if this is going to be the criteria for the selection committee, then, we should just probably say goodbye to mid-major basketball ever really making a dent, right?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'll give you an example. We had a pretty good team at Bowling Green one year. I think it was 2002. We won maybe 24, 25 games. And, ESPN called me before the season, knew we were going to be pretty good, and wanted to set up a game with Rick Barnes in Texas. A neutral site somewhere in Dallas. I forget, part of a doubleheader. I'm like, hell yeah, we'll do that. Well, Rick Barnes, he's like, hey, we ain't guarding that motion. We struggle guarding Coach Knight's motion. Dan runs the same motion coach for him. So we're not doing it. So we couldn't even get a neutral site game. Oh. So this is an ongoing issue. And again, I don't see it really change anytime soon. Even given the success of mid majors, VCU, George Mason, Butler 2 times going to the Final Four.
Dan Dakich with us here on 107.7 The Franchise. You mentioned you were at Pittsburgh last night for that NIT game. What was your thought the first time you've seen the 30-second shot clock? Did it make any difference to you?
Not that much, but I liked it a lot better, and it's weird to say, right? They make your internal clock. You watch college basketball, you're used to a certain shot clock. You watch the NBA, you just have a different internal clock, whether you're a player, a coach, or a broadcaster. And I was asking the officials, they're like, yeah, man, all of a sudden you look up and, there's 10 seconds, not 15. That was a little bit weird. It didn't have a great impact last night. The only impact it had was, like, you could see, just for that split second, a coach or a player looking at the clock and, they kind of jolt like, hey, we got to go, that kind of thing. But I don't think it had great impact last night. But I tell you this, since it didn't have a great impact, I'm all for it, because if it's not going to completely change the game, if it's not going to change the rules, then let's do it, because it definitely gives you more possessions, or at least a chance at more possessions.
Dan Dakich with us on 107.7 The Franchise. Dan, what does we never asked this question around here. I think maybe it's just this the statute of limitations has gone by on Lon Kruger being a new coach anymore. But he's done a good job here. He hadn't won a whole lot of postseason games, but he's done a good job here. What makes Lon Kruger stand out, according to another coach who's been in the business for a long time?
Man, that's a great question, because I thought when he was at Illinois and we played against him, he outcoached us all the time.
Really?
Night was yeah.
How?
Did.
How? I mean, can you?
I don't know. They were very solid defensively. They never wavered from how they played. Like, we were up 5 against his. No, I'm sorry. No, we were not. That was Boston College. But at Indiana, I remember we were up at home, and they just stayed with what they did. And he got guys to be really confident shooting the ball and defending. And I'm not exactly sure. I was just having this conversation with Miles Simon when we were doing all the bracketology stuff on Sunday. I don't know. If you're going to ask me who's one of the great, not good, great unknown coaches in college basketball, the first guy I would list would be Lon Kruger. He's just one of those guys whose teams are always ready, whose teams are always tough, whose teams don't really waver, or at least what I know of. I haven't studied Oklahoma all that much this year, but that's my impression of Lon. I'm, as you know, Easy, I'm not saying every coach is great, but I think he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, you don't. I mean, you'll call it like you see it. So I think,
yeah.
and if people know that about Dan, I think that goes a long way into what you think about Lon Kruger. You've seen Wisconsin a lot this season, and that would be the second round opponent for Oklahoma State, and that's only if they get by Oregon. But how do you beat, just for Oklahoma State fans, how do you beat a team like Wisconsin? How would you do it?
Maryland did a good job, but you got to be able to guard your own. Like, a lot of times when you play against the zone, you try to get into gaps and get 2 guys to come to the ball, then you kick it to the next guy. Truth of the matter, with a little bit of movement, that's Wisconsin's offense. But if you can guard your own and you don't have to help and you can keep them in front of you, you got a shot. Now, not a lot of teams have been able to do that because they have 5 spots that can all drive the basketball, kick it, and find the next. I mean, Kaminsky goes out on the perimeter, depending on a matchup. Like, if they think it's a better matchup for the others to bring Kaminsky out on the perimeter, they'll put Frank outside, set ball screens, pop, and let him be the playmaker. If you can do that and you can not let them get on a big free throw disparity because they're not going to foul, if you can not turn the damn ball over, particularly as Izzo says, turnovers for touchdowns, then you're going to be right there with them. But that all sounds easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier to sit here and talk about it on the radio than it is to play against it, because they're like running water, man, or dripping water. They're just going to do the same thing every time. They're just going to wear you out, and it never stops and it never changes. And it's what they do, and what they've always done. But now they've got, fantastic shooters and ball handlers and a bunch of guys that can make shots and both smart enough to let them go.
All right, we're going to ask you the question that everybody's asking on every sports radio show this week.
The real hacky
question.
radio question. Awesome.
But I think Dan Dakich is going to have better insight. That's why I'm asking him.
Oh, look at you buttering him up.
Kentucky or the field?
Oh, God, that is such a crappy question.
April 25th last year, I put out, I'll take Kentucky undefeated. Here's the deal, and this is where two things that all of us geniuses on ESPN, all those geniuses on ESPN are getting wrong. Number one, people say, well, the pressure on Kentucky's going to be immeasurable. No, it's not. I'll tell you why. Kentucky's fresh. Kentucky knows they have so many players that if I screw up, somebody else will do better, so they play loose. The pressure I've seen this year has been on the other teams, whether it's Texas A&M, Mississippi, LSU. They're the ones choking at the end with a chance to beat Kentucky. Kentucky's been fairly flawless down the stretch of games. And then the other thing is, they got great talent, but easy, I'm telling you, man, they got real toughness last year. Like, they were awful middle of the year. I did a game at LSU. They were like, Cauley Stein is yelling at Kenny Payne on the bench. Patino. Calipari literally had to push, I don't know, it was Harrison, from left side to right side because he wasn't listening, trying to get him to get in the right spot of his zone, and they lost the game. But I always think when you come out of something like that and you get stronger, and they got stronger because they went to the Final Four in a very tough road, that carries over. And that's the thing that I think is carried over more than anything. They don't mess around with it. They mess around with teams. But hell, everybody's going to do that over the course of a long season. People say, "Well, this team played them close." Yeah, there's a difference between close and beating them. There's a hell of a difference. So no, I don't see anybody beating them. I just put an article on ESPN today. The three teams that I think have a real shot are Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Duke. And ironically enough, I didn't realize this when I wrote it. That's who they would play in order as they move through the tournament. Elite Eight on. But I don't think anybody's beating them.
Jim Boeheim just said he just announced this. I don't know if you've been able to see it yet or not. I'm assuming you're in the car. That he's going to retire in 3 years. I mean, how odd is that for someone to say? I mean, I know it's a special circumstance here, but how odd is it to say you're going to retire in 3 years?
My fiance is a softball coach there, so she told me that was coming, and I asked her that. I said, "Is that strange?" She goes, "No." She goes, "The reason it's not real strange is because they've kind of said all along that he was going to retire, and Mike was going to be the coach, Hopkins, and they were going to give a time frame. If people go back, and nobody will, and nobody should. Hell, we got other things to do. But if people go back and really look, it's kind of what Syracuse has said. Now, they're also reassigning their athletic director, which anybody that's ever coached understands when you got a coach that's as successful as Boeheim and things go south, it ain't going to be the coach that gets the act. It's going to be the athletic director. So Darryl Gross is now going to be vice president or chancellor or something like that. So it's just a matter of time before he's moved out of there, and they find a new AD. And I was just sitting on a plane with Jamie Dixon. He was flying to recruit here in Connecticut, and we were just sitting there talking. And he asked me, what's the biggest difference in coaching since you've been out of it? You get to go see a bunch of different places. And I said, well, ADs are getting fired now, so they're paying more attention to you guys. And he's like, man, you're absolutely right. And so, they have been, the timing is obvious, right? The timing is,
right.
That's obvious. But they have said all along that they were going to announce a timeline for Jim to step down. And you know what? They did it today.
Is this it for Crean? This is it for Crean, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't
yes,
think
you
so.
do. Yes, you do. Come on.
No, I don't. I would tell you. I would tell you on my show. I'd tell people on my show. I honestly don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. Let me put it that way. Because to me, again, I go back to this, man. Indiana just won the Big Ten 2 years ago. He's graduating everybody. People are fickle. I've criticized Tom and what I think has been a coaching mistakes or whatever. Hell, but I don't want him to get fired. I'll say this. There were rumors about him going to Alabama before the Alabama job opened up. And that's always fishy to me because I am a huge believer because this happened. I remember they offered me the Marshall job, and the AD's in my office, and I said, well, you got to coach Billy Donovan. He goes, no, Billy's going to Florida. I go, really? So, I had that job. I had the West Virginia job before anybody else knew it. So I always believe these jobs get, filled before the previous guy gets hired. So that is a little suspect to me. But I think the AD he's a really honest guy, and he'd come out and support the Green. So I'll be honest with you, I don't think so. And, the one thing I've said about both Indiana and Purdue this year, they both have opportunity to get an iconic type win. Indiana barely limping into the tournament, got a chance at Kansas if they can beat Wichita State, and Purdue got a chance at Kentucky. I mean, what the hell? You save yourself a lot of years, or get yourself a lot of years on a contract with a big win in the tournament, as you and I just talked about. So we'll see.
All right, the 30-second Dan Dakich guide to parenting.
Oh boy!
I'll be a parent for the first time in July. The 30-second Dan Dakich guide to parenting is.
Well, when they're young and you can't get them to sleep, put them in their little jumper thing and put them on top of the dryer. That's for damn sure. Because then that puts them to sleep.
You put them on the jumper on top of the dryer.
Yeah, man, they'll fall asleep. They will. Don't get shocked. Don't get shocked by anything that comes out of their body. That's just going to happen.
That's actually, both of those are very good. I have those written down. And congratulations on your engagement. I hadn't talked to you since then. Congratulations. Happy for you. And thank you for coming on. I know this is busy time, so I really do appreciate you cutting out some.
Your time, Easy.
All right, buddy.
All
right, man.
Goodbye.
Dan Dakich on 107.7 The Franchise.